So we broke the news on Friday's show that Trey Lance was traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. Now, other teams actually were interested in Trey Lance, such as the Falcons, Ravens, Bills, and Lions. We just talked about running backs in those teams. Some of these teams don't necessarily need a quarterback, but they were still interested in getting Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance was talking to the 49ers before he left, and he said that he actually requested a trade on Wednesday, and that's why, at least I thought on the Harvey Hour Fired Up, that he didn't show up to practice because he knew what was going on. He wanted to be away from the team, and I said he probably requested a trade. Well, that was true. He did request a trade because he said he wanted to have a shot at being the backup quarterback. What's funny is he's not even the backup quarterback on the team he got traded to.
Yeah.
He's behind Cooper Rush.
And he won't be. Cooper Rush got a 2-year deal.
Yeah, so it is going to be very difficult to see Trey Lance move up in the ranks, at least on that team. So I want to know, are you surprised that the Dallas Cowboys decided to trade a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance?
I will say this again, and I said it when we were talking about Mac Jones. When you're the quarterback, you've got to have supreme confidence in yourself, right? And so Dak Prescott is now the latest example of someone who's got to have supreme confidence in their own ability, because Jerry Jones just said and with this trade that he doesn't have supreme confidence in Dak Prescott. And he's thinking that if Dak Prescott has another year like he had this past year with 15 interceptions in 12 games, and basically being the reason why they lost the game to the 49ers 19-12 with his 2 interceptions, that he's not going to give Dak an extension, and he's going to give Trey Lance a chance. That's what he said he said we did it because we want to bring in young talent, and we've had a hard time bringing in young talent, and this was an opportunity to do that. But if Dak Prescott is your guy and he's the franchise quarterback, then Trey Lance isn't going to get into the game. And by the way, you gave Cooper Rush a 2-year deal to keep him around, and he has a record of 4-1 as a starter. So the reason they've got Trey Lance there is they don't trust Dak Prescott. We're worried he's going to have another stinker, and they may put him in this year. They may give him a chance this year if Dak Prescott starts throwing interceptions all over the place. But definitely next year. I'd say they're really looking at him for next year. They're going to let him watch this year and learn. They say Dak Prescott is a great teacher. So I don't know how incentivized he's going to be to teach Trey Lance when he's waiting to take over his job. But, his contract's up in 2024. And if he doesn't get him at least to the NFC Championship game this year, I would say they're going to give Trey Lance a great chance to step in there and be the starter going forward.
I think it's interesting. I don't know if we'll necessarily... We may see Trey Lance even this season, because in the past 3 years, Dak Prescott has only played two-thirds of the games that he could potentially play. He did have that, I believe it was a compound fracture 2 years ago, and then he was out that entire season, obviously. He came back, but he's played 66% of the past 3 seasons, and last season he played, I think it was 11 or 12 games, and somehow, some way, he led the league in interceptions, which that's shocking in of itself. So Dak Prescott and this Cowboys offense, when it matters most, I think Dak comes up very, very small, because like you mentioned, I'm going to bring you in here, like you mentioned, Brock Purdy didn't play well against that Cowboys defense in the playoffs. I mean, Dak literally threw the game away. He had 2 horrible interceptions, and these weren't tipped interceptions. These weren't where, it's just unfortunate. These were bad throws to players who weren't necessarily open, and he threw the game away. It was very, very bad timing that he decided to throw these interceptions. And that's why I think we may see Trey Lance actually play, because, Dak, we've seen him, he's only played in the past 3 seasons. He hasn't even played a full season. He's taken at least 1 game off for the past 3 seasons. In totality, he's missed a third of the past 3 seasons. So I think it'll be interesting to see if Trey Lance actually, if they know Cooper Rush is good, and we saw how Cooper Rush played last season. when Dak was out, he was surprisingly efficient. And we actually debated on the show whether or not that they should keep Cooper Rush in there to make sure Dak is 100% healthy and ready to go. And at the time, I think both me and you said you got to put him in at least one more. You got to let Cooper Rush play at least one more week. But they ended up they didn't and let Dak Prescott play that week where we were debating it. But we saw Cooper Rush. He played very, very well, surprisingly well. And I don't know if necessarily Jerry Jones will throw him into the fire and say, you know what, Trey Lance, we don't know what you look like. We know what Cooper Rush gives us. We'll give you a trial run. We'll throw you out instead of Cooper Rush if Dak Prescott ends up getting injured. But I think you're right about this. We need to wait at about 2 seasons from now because Dak becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2025. That'll be very interesting to see what the Cowboys do because Trey Lance, and I've said this, I feel like while it started as Trey Lance is a bad quarterback, it came, I believe my take sort of morphed into he's a bad quarterback, and I have to think that way because it was an unfortunate situation on the 49ers. Every quarterback that was with Trey Lance on that team was just slightly better or very much better than Trey Lance at that time. Jimmy G made it to an NFC championship the year that they drafted Trey Lance. Then it was his team. Then Jimmy G played well. Then Jimmy G got hurt. Brock Purdy came in, went undefeated, went healthy. And you can't do anything about that because this team for the past, I want to say 4 or 5 seasons, has been we're ready to win a Super Bowl now. They've been a Super Bowl contender since 2019 when they made the Super Bowl and were leading by 10 in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs. They've been in win-now mode for years and years and years, and this team's getting older. You can't put in a project like Trey Lance, who was the rawest quarterback coming out of this draft, and say, we have our full faith in you, go win us some games, when guess what? He still will have rookie problems. He'll still make rookie mistakes because he hasn't had the snaps.
No, Brock Purdy may have that issue the second year, too. We don't know.
We have to see. And
he came out like a house of fire. 5 wins, and then he was undefeated really until he got hurt in the Eagles game. So it's hard to know whether he would have won the Super Bowl or not. He could have taken him to a win there. That game was just getting started when he got hurt.
Right.
So we don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I find it very interesting that 2 of these teams don't need a quarterback and we're still interested. And that's the Bills and the Ravens.
Yeah, why were the Bills? Why do you think the Bills were interested?
A backup quarterback for Josh Allen. I'm not entirely sure.
I don't know. I don't understand that.
The Ravens make some sense.
I think the Ravens make sense.
We haven't seen Lamar play in December and January in the past 3 seasons.
That's right. And Trey Lance is a similar type quarterback.
Right, exactly.
Even a little bigger.
Yeah. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when Lamar was dealing with his contract situation, we've been talking about Trey Lance for months at this point. If I'm not mistaken, I mentioned that the Ravens, if another team makes an offer that the Ravens don't want to match, and Lamar goes to that team, to look at Trey Lance as a potential option because he fits into the same style offense, which I also think would work with the Falcons. They want to be a
I don't know why the Falcons didn't get him. I think they made a mistake.
The owner still believes in Desmond Ridder, but it's Desmond Ridder. He's not going to be a top 5 quarterback, top 10. He's not even going to be top 15, 16 in the league, at least for a number of years. So, and then the Lions,
I could have had him for a 4th-round pick.
Here's the thing.
I think that's worth the risk.
I wouldn't give it up. Because we don't know.
You wouldn't give up a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance.
He couldn't beat out Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, we both think, is a complete bust. And that's why I think killed his trade value. I said back on Wednesday.
I think it's still a small sample. It's just a couple of games out there.
It is. And guess what? The sample won't get any bigger. It won't get any bigger because he's a third-string quarterback.
You know what? I think he was feeling too much tension, too. I think he was feeling a lot of tension. I don't think he played as well as he could have. I still think the jury's out on this guy. He didn't play in 2020 in his final college year because of COVID.
He played one game, basically nothing.
Yeah, nothing. So, and he got his chance to start there, and he played the first couple games, but then he got hurt, and it was out the whole year.
Yeah.
So, and this preseason, he didn't look that great. He didn't look that great, but I don't think he expected them to bring in Darnold to be there competing with him. So, I still think the jury's out. If I were the Falcons, they may wish they'd gotten him if he winds up being a star, but it'll be a while before we'll find out with him at the Cowboys because Dak Prescott's going to get the snaps, and if he gets hurt, it's going to be Cooper Rush coming in there, not Trey Lance.
And that's the thing. Or the Cowboys have a decision to make because they're paying him $5 million next year and then a couple $100,000 this year. Are you going to give him his fifth-year option? Because if you do, that's the year that Dak would be gone.
Yeah.
That fifth year would be now. Yeah, that's the decision. If they pick up his fifth-year option, I think we could potentially be seeing Trey Lance be the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
They probably one reason they did it, send a message to Dak Prescott: don't screw up this year.
Do you think that's also on Mike McCarthy? I mean, Jerry Jones loves Mike McCarthy. Could he be out the door this season if they don't play well?
I don't think so.
You think Mike McCarthy?
If they don't. I mean, they're probably the third best team in the NFC, don't you think? I would say the 49ers and the Eagles are ahead of them.
Correct.
Right? But they're the third best team, so they should be able to get pretty deep into the playoffs.
They've also won 12 games the past two seasons as well.
Yeah, they should be able to get to the NFC Championship game. They should be able to get to the NFC Championship. If they do that, then Dak Prescott's okay. He's going to be around. If they don't, I think that you're going to see them give Trey Lance a really good chance.
And I agree with you because if you I'm going to bring up the roster right now. I mean, this is an insane roster. You have Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, who was a better running back last year. He had one of the highest grades by PFF. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, who I think was a great pickup at a wide receiver too. Michael Gallup, not bad. They've one of the best offensive lines. Tyron Smith and Zach Martin are two both phenomenal offensive linemen. Then this defense. Ready for this? DeMarcus Lawrence, who's a great defensive end. Micah Parsons, one of the hottest new defensive players. Leighton Vander Esch, who I think is pretty good. Stephon Gilmore, former Patriot. Jaron Kearse, who I don't think is that bad at safety. Donovan Wilson, who's not that bad. And then Trayvon Diggs, who had, how many interceptions did he have a couple seasons ago? He had 10 or something like that?
He wasn't so great last year.
Yeah, no, it wasn't too hot, but he's still one of the better cornerbacks in the league. So this team, as it's currently constructed, in the NFC at least, should be one of the teams to at least make it to the NFC Championship game. It's a question of, do the Eagles take that step back? Do you have a sort of Super Bowl hangover potentially? And you brought this up, the sample size. It's not going to get any bigger, at least in the near future, unless Cooper Rush gets hurt and Dak Prescott gets hurt. Otherwise, the sample size is going to stay the same because he's not going to play any games. So I don't know. We're in an interesting situation with Trey Lance.
I mean, there's no preseason left.
That's preseason. Over. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd say basically watch us this year.
It's a question of what can he gain,
chances. So he isn't going to get many reps in practice, right? They don't do that much between games. So, and Dak Prescott's going to get all the first team reps. So I don't know. If they bring him in, he's going to be real nervous again because he won't have had any. It'll be a brand new offense for him, and he won't have had any practice with it. So it's pretty hard to succeed in that setup. But
I think there is a decent chance, though, that Dak does not play all 17 games.
Well, based on the last few seasons, I can see why. He usually gets hurt.
It's just the question of do Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones decide to put in Trey Lance over Cooper Rush? That's going to be the big question mark. Now, if they're the solidified other number one seed or they're like a certified division winner, do they then rest Dak and then, in order to give Trey Lance reps, put him over Cooper Rush? That could be a scenario where we see Trey Lance start over Cooper Rush.
I don't know. That would that might be something that upset the team. I think if they won a lot of games, they were just waiting for the playoffs to begin. I don't know.
You would keep Dak out there. I mean,
I'd let Cooper Rush play. I'm not sure I'd let Trey Lance play.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.